You know, one of the things we're kind of looking for right now in assessing the state of partisan politics in the United States, what's going to happen in November in this presidential race after the very meaningful, in many ways, presidential debate between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. One of the things we're looking for is signal in the middle of all the noise. And that's really at the core of looking at fundraising, because fundraising can be a proxy to enthusiasm, to figure out which of the narratives about that presidential debate is really the one that is meaningful in thinking about what is next? Or national polling between Trump and Biden? Or what about a generic congressional ballot looking at states? The point is to find some signal in all of the noise that often will just be Biden's the only one that can win. Biden should drop out, or whatever else the case may be. One of the alternatives to looking at national polling, which we have done, is to look at swing states. And there's some very interesting new data from swing states. Business Insider reports Biden has actually narrowed the gap with Trump in key swing states despite disastrous debate, new polling shows. We're going to look at what the polling is. This is saying, hey, you know what? You were right, David. Just looking at national numbers doesn't really tell us what we need to know. The fact that Trump's lead went from 1.5 to 3 nationally after the debate on average doesn't really tell us what we need to know, because if some of that shift is in California, Biden's still going to win California, although maybe by a little bit less than he otherwise would have. Or Texas is still going to be won by Trump, maybe just by 2 more points than it normally would. So this gets us to swing states. Realistically, this is an election, even after the debate, it will probably still come down to 500,000 votes in 3 to 5 states. What's happening in those key states? Well, let's take a look. The article explains, Joe Biden's widely panned debate sent his campaign reeling. But while some recent polls show Trump with wider leads than before the debate, a new Bloomberg News Morning Consult poll shows Biden making up ground in the most important places of all, swing states. Trump, in the latest survey, had a 47-45 lead over Biden in swing states. That's the closest it has been in this poll, dating all the way back to last fall. Biden leads Trump in Michigan and Wisconsin. The president trails Trump, but remains within the margin of error in Arizona, Georgia, Nevada, and North Carolina. It's not all good news for Biden. Biden was behind by 7 in Pennsylvania, where he was born and spent a lot of campaign time. Trump leading 51-44 in Pennsylvania. That is not a good sign, amidst some other good signs. The Bloomberg News Morning Consult survey also found that 39% of swing state voters, a number well short of a majority, feels Biden should definitely or probably continue on with his candidacy. Biden registered higher support among liberals. For Trump, 50% say that Trump should definitely or probably stay in the race. So a few important takeaways here that are really important. After Biden's debate performance, we still have half of respondents saying Trump should get out of the race. And this is something we spoke about earlier this week. For all of the calls and discussions that Biden must get out, isn't it Trump really who should absolutely get out? Whatever you think about Joe Biden's health, make it a different question, make it a separate question from Trump. Shouldn't the convicted felon, civilly liable rapist drop out of the race? Isn't that abundantly clear at this point in time? So one takeaway is, when we look at a poll that says 72% believe Biden is unfit to serve, 50% in the same poll say Trump is unfit to serve. It's not 72 versus 0. It's 72 versus 50. And once you understand that, the allegedly obvious nature of the case to be made one way or the other becomes far less obvious. Secondly, you can interpret these swing state polls any way you want. And as we go back to the concept of looking for signal in all of the noise, as I've said before, on the one hand, you can say, wow, Trump's lead nationally has more than doubled, going from 1.5 to 3.3 since the debate. That's terrible for Biden. On the other hand, you can say, absolutely terrible debate by Biden, one of the worst we've seen in a long time, and he's still only losing by 3.3. You can make a counterpoint to that, which some of you wrote to me and said, despite Trump being a convicted felon and civilly liable rapist, Biden still can't even tie him. That's a bad sign. The point is, this is all in the framing. And I lean more and more as the days go by towards the Alan Lichtman perspective, which is the debate performance, as bad as it was. And people write to me and they go, David, it wasn't that bad. If you read the debate transcript, it wasn't that bad. Well, a debate is more than a transcript. So I reject that. I think the debate was bad. But the debate being bad doesn't change the underlying structure of this race. And I know I'm now repeating myself from earlier this week and last week, but Biden's debate performance doesn't change the accomplishments that he's had. It doesn't change the state of the economy. It doesn't change what he's done on student loans and cannabis and pharmaceutical cost and all of these other things. And if you consider it in that way, which Alan Lichtman does, and not everybody agrees with Alan Lichtman, but he certainly has a record that would justify at least listening to him, nothing has fundamentally changed on the basis of Biden's debate performance. So that's where we are in swing states. I struggle to believe that Biden is going to win this election without winning Pennsylvania. So there's no doubt that Trump leading by 7 in Pennsylvania is a problem, but that doesn't mean things can't change between now and November. So that's where we are on swing states.